Thank you for joining me for part 2. Hope you enjoy.
Hello, hey, and welcome back to my channel for this series about me, my journey of accepting and my healing journey of accepting. Let's try again. Hey, welcome back to part 2 of my series. Thank you so much for joining me again. I'm so happy you decided to come back. So, for those of you that are new here, and this may be the first video you decide to jump into the series, and that's okay. My name is Danny. I'm a medium psychic, and I decided to spend Ancestor Month talking about my ancestors, my ancestral healing journey, building my altar, and what that has done for me. And, I wanted to share that because I feel like that's a way of giving reverence, and it's a way of just sharing how it is a journey. It is not something that I decided to just jump into, and a bunch of things fell into place. It took tower moments. It took praying. It took being still in a sense of you're being put on pause. What do you do with that, right? And some of you are probably like, oh, girl, that's me right now. Like, what are you saying? And that has always been one of the cases, but creating my ancestor altar gave me avenues of how to handle that. It even had me face myself, because are things just being blocked from me, or are there things I need to do on my end to show I'm ready for it, or am I doing everything to get to that point, or am I just expecting something to come to me without any work put in, right? And some of you are probably like, I've been putting in the work, I've been doing it. Okay. Or am I doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome? Am I giving space to let something work? It may not work within that day or that week or even that month, but am I giving it space and having hope, optimism, and belief that this is something that's going to pull through? If I'm looking down, it's because I took some notes. I want to make sure I'm not veering off and wasting time. So what I'll be discussing in this part 2 video, that will be split into 2 parts technically. So part 2 and 3 is just the stability aspect. There's a lot of trauma when it comes to stability, and I'm going to speak for me personally. Losing your job, being laid off, and having to worry so much every month of how you're going to make ends meet. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people can understand that. Hell, you can understand that now. There is a layer of trauma there. There's a layer of scarcity, fear there. And there's just always this innate feeling like, do I have enough? And it's a pit turning feeling. It it wreaks havoc over your body. And sometimes you may not notice it because you're so focused on trying to get to that end. But if it's something you're doing continuously every month with no end in sight, that is something that can really rewire your whole system, and you're not noticing the healing you have to do because you're always in survivor mode. And that was something I was in, and something I had to work out of. Like, yes, I am going through this, but I don't need to be in that mindset, that mode, because it's such a deep and dark place when you think of it, right? We want all these things, but we're so depressed. We feel so rejected. We're so annoyed. We're just starting to think like, what the fuck doesn't matter? It's not gonna work anyways. But I want that thing. But the shit, is to save yourself, to protect yourself, and that is something I have to face about myself. Do I believe that I am deserving? Do I believe that it's actually gonna pan through, or am I just very deep inside feeling apathetic about it and lost about it? Along with that, being present, that is something that ancestral work and altar work has helped me with. Being present, because I can come to them with these issues, right? But I have to make sure that I'm not living in the past of being laid off, and I'm not too deep in the future having that anxiety. What is happening now? What can I do now that's going to be those building places for those future things? And that was something I had to really change my perspective on. And that's what another thing my ancestral altar helped was changing my perspective. And I think a really big thing that helped me really dive deep into this, and I was already in it, like I said, 2019, getting more into it, was the pandemic that we're still currently in, but the lockdown essentially in 2020. The lockdown really highlighted a lot of things within people. It was a lot of breakthroughs for people. It was a time for people to pause, to just be, to meet their inner child, like me. I think it was Shannon Tatum who did a big post, and he was talking about, the lockdown not working, right? And not trying to dress him like he's bored or something. No, no, no. But being able to have more time with his daughter was like, oh man, shit, I like to play. I needed this. My inner child needed this. It unversed so much, right? Accepting my gifts and realizing ancestral work is the foundational base, which is why I'm doing this video, because it is the foundation. If you're wondering where to start, a lot of people, they'll start collecting crystals, they'll start looking into, I'm speaking primarily for like Black folks. I don't know, all cultures do, right? It's kind of, we jump out of things, but we don't look into what's within our reach in our cultural background, because we're just trying to look for like what fits, and there's nothing wrong with that. And a lot of times I've seen, especially in regards to experiences online that do that, I see that in about a year today, and I'm talking about ancestral work, and that being like their centerpiece, because that is what holds that together. Um, they there it's not something you need to necessarily buy or get. You can just out a glass of water and a candle and ask for your most benevolent and honorable and highly healed ancestors, and that could be it, right? Because they understand where we are, they understand where we're starting from. They are us. We are the embodiment of them. We are our first ancestor altar, which is why taking care of yourself is so important. And the ancestral altar helped with that. It helped a lot with me being able to be connected with my body. And I've always dreamed, but not to a point where I was really remembering or I was paying attention to my dreams, but it helped me gain insight and information in my dreams and family tea. Mm-hmm. You found all the family tea as you're starting really work with your ancestor altar, because one thing you really notice, like if you're close, or like your grandparents, especially your grandma and aunts, older aunts and stuff, they love themselves a little tea, a little gossip. Are you kidding me? And the fact, and they love when you listen to them and you are acknowledging them, like we do our altar. It makes them give so much more. So finding out tea, getting insight on how, in order for me to start manifesting abundance, to start asking for all these things, I had to do a lot of healing of my own, because I ready for that type of blessing? Am I in the right mindset, the right mind frame to have it, receive it, and be grateful for it? Or am I going to have this innate fear of it not panning out, or being abandoned in the sense of not being able to have this? So healing really shaped a lot of that for me to step into the next step. And I know we always hear that, like they're just prepping you, they're priming you, step in the next step. That's literally what that is, because me connecting with my gifts, me connecting with the fact that I'm a medium and I'm psychic and everything, I had to do a lot of my own healing work, because I didn't need all that stuff happening if I'm not doing my protections, if I'm not doing my cleansings. You know, that's just going to open more of a door for me of having exposure that I don't need yet necessarily. And that's why working with my ancestors is so important, because they are my guide. They are the folks that I'm sitting with, I'm planning with. And this is what has helped shape me. And another thing I want to step into is, a lot of times when I'm doing readings with clients, they say, I'm not really close to my parents, or I don't know who they are. How can I connect with my ancestors? Oh, you can. I don't have a close relationship with my mother at all, but I am so close with the ancestors on my mother's side. From my grandfather to my great grandmother, I'm so close with them. I built relationships with them, and when I'm receiving insight, it's always confirmed when I happen to connect with a family member from that side, and they say something. So, oh, that's what they meant by that. Okay, okay, I gotta chat with them later. So, I do want to throw that out there. You can do ancestral work. Also, if you have people in your life that you have considered an uncle, a mother, a grandmother, even though we're blood, you can bring reverence to them. There is bond, there's connection there, and their ancestor because they passed. So let's let's get into the things. So stability. Stability, I spoke on being laid off in the last video. That is a core part of me that I've never realized is such a trigger point because stability works in all the sense. Being financially stable, being physically stable, like having stable relationships, right? And that was something I've realized was a very big healing point for me because losing my job and having to kind of go through a different route of being able to make money and pay bills every month without thinking this one set way, it worked my whole mindset around stability. How can you gain it? What is that? Is there only one way to have it? And in the sense of, is there only one way to be able to make money? Going to college, going to work? No. Um, what if I have those things and for whatever reason I still don't feel stable? Is it deeper than just the physical sense? What other realms does it hit? And being at my altar and having to talk about the things that I was going through, having to face it, having to there are times where there's nothing else I can do but walk to that altar, right? And sitting there and having to face myself in until I'm stable within myself, everything else is going to be out of whack, right? If I say this is what I want and that's what I'm going to go for, and I go against that, I'm not being stable within myself and it's going to show. What really had me recognize that stability is something that can only hone from within and then you can see other things become stable is when the lockdown happened, the pandemic. Going through unemployment in 2019 was hard because everybody else was still essentially working, right? You're still looking for jobs the regular way, but they're still acting weird about being laid off or acting weird about the fact that you worked all temp jobs, but you need to have a job in order to have that job on your job history. So you're going to work temp jobs to continue to have experience in the field, right? Acting weird about all those things, having me question my experience, myself, like, am I going to go through this, right? Am I going to make it through this? And once the lockdown happened, it felt like the world was on pause. And once I got to see how other people were reacting to their stability about to be lost, how the world was handling it, how it unearthed so many things, even within our economy. And I was just like, you have been unemployed now for quite a few months, and you've been doing it. You've even been able to do maybe one thing or two, and you're gonna get through this. You know, um, everything happens in phases and waves. And I had to really sit with the fact, like, I have to make sure that I'm in a grounded place where nothing else is gonna be. It would get stable, and that's what had me get to the next level. How do I stay stable inside? It's about being present. You can't be harped on the past and you can't be too harped on what's going to happen in the future. It is a balance. And it's a balance that you can find yourself, being far tipped on one side than the other. But the part that really makes the difference. It's recognizing that, for me to recognize that and to get myself back into balance. And that meant meditating. That meant having intentions with meditating. And you can meditate on different things, right? Right? Like I used to meditate on changing my perspective because I had one perspective over something. I'm just like, clearly there's another way I need to look at this. Let me meditate on changing my perspective. And essentially rewiring my brain, rewiring my body. And that takes time. It all takes time. Rewiring yourself, and because the digger you deep, the more you realize this ain't supposed to be in here. What is this? What does that connect to? You're learning about yourself. You're learning about the fact that you really don't like that thing, or you actually really do like that thing. You're just learning that everything essentially what you thought it was probably isn't. And if that's not a spiritual journey within the as, if that's not an awakening, I don't know what is. And that was where I was at. And so releasing fear and going with the damn flow that just kept going opposite what I wanted her to go, what I thought we were going, right? What I meditated on, what I prayed on, what I manifested on. And going with the flow. And why was that so hard for me? Right? Because in order to really get to like your abundance, to really be able to get to that next step, you have to go with the flow of what that is. And if you're not able to, you're kind of hopping off the boat, you're stopping it, you're kind of like, and that was me. I that was me. I had a plan for how things were supposed to go. I had a whole plan, and that plan was really working until up it didn't. And I didn't know what to do when something just was not working out. I was so used to having to fight all the time, and still am at times, like having to keep going at something. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to take it this way, that way. But never my mind could have thought like maybe this is not for me. I was always just a big person on, excuse me, you gotta work to the knuckles, to the elbows bleed, right? And that's not to say that's not the case, but it was me just kind of keep going the same path to bleed instead of just saying, there could be ease in this process, or there could be a different way that's honestly the best for me, right? I may not have wanted to go that way. I may have pictured, dreamed, and wanted to manifest this way, but it's not working. And do you want that thing or not? You're going to take this other path to get to it. And so my ancestors really showed me how they gave me the grace that I was refusing to give myself. They were holding me, they were comforting me, they were loving on me in times where I did not think that there was going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. It sounds like what? But it's just, that was where I was at, right? When you're going on interviews weekly, when you're paying for things like gas and things that you cannot afford to go to these interviews, going to interviews on your birthday, doing all these things and being told you're so great, but you're not getting it, or you are scrolling or looking at what's going on outside and you feel stuck, you feel as if you'll never get to that point. And when I would call recruiters, like, oh my God, I've been there. That TV, right? It just be those shows. And I remember like, oh, so you watch TV too? And you're like, oh, they're like, yeah, like you realize you're not the only one that's gone through that process when you kind of remove yourself from your pity party, essentially. Because I think a pity party, you're allowed to have one, but don't be the only contender there, still there every day, same table, same aisle. You know, it's okay. What are we gonna do to bypass this? Because I had to realize that is what came with life, and I needed that moment. I needed that moment of not knowing what's gonna come next. I needed the moment of understanding that the things I thought that I wanted to plan and what I felt was best for me, probably what was best for me in the moment, but now is something different. Now I don't want to do that career. Now I don't want to take that path. And also having to realize some things that probably had a very big deadline for, wanted to work on, are going to be paused. And I have control when I want to pick it up. No one's like standing over me with like a pitchfork, like, you need to get this done now. Like, who's doing that? And I have to also rewire myself of that, of deadlines, of running on no rest, no break, and fuel, thinking that I have to do this, I have to do that, because who's asking for that? It's me putting that pressure on myself. And where does that stem from? And having to realize there are roots to things, and I can find a root to those things. It does not mean my childhood was all bad. It just means, okay, that is what's connected to this. And what did little me need in that moment that I'm looking for now that's causing this to continue in me, right? And so closing this and realizing this, because if I'm not stable within myself, right? If I'm not understanding what protections are, if I'm not understanding what my foundational base is, being present, how can I accept my gifts? If I feel like I'm supposed to be set this one way, how can I accept the unknown? How can I accept the occult? How can I accept the fact that this shit is different and people are not going to take it well? And that's not to say everybody in my life did not take it well. It's just to say some people take it well and some people, they don't think I know, but I know, like, you kind of look at me a little weird. And I can't rely on other people's acceptance for me, because it will never work in this journey. And that is going to my next part of this video. I hope you enjoyed this first part, and I'll catch you in part 3. See you next time.